my friends. And thank you so much for coming to spend part of your Sunday evening with me. Today is Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. And it's been a long 5 days since we've had no Karen Reed trial for the last 5 days. Trial resumes again tomorrow morning at 9. I will see you at 8:30 to do a little hello before court gets started. And then there will be no court on Tuesday, full day on Wednesday, half day Thursday till noon, and no court on Friday. It does feel like forever, doesn't it? I hope everyone had a chance to breathe and got a little break and having a little withdrawal. I covered 2 other cases on Thursday and Friday. Covered the Chad Daybell verdict, and then a little bit going into the death penalty phase. And then it turns out that he did get the death penalty, for those of you who are wondering. And then on Friday, I covered the victim impact statements on the Michelle Draconis trial. So that was very, very sad. And then I was not able to go live again in the afternoon when she was sentenced to 20 years. And she'll be eligible for parole after something like 14 and a half years. That was a case out of Connecticut. And so I thought I'd come back with you tonight, Sunday evening, so that we can talk a little bit about Karen Reed. And when we covered the trial live, we don't really have a lot of time to talk about it and a lot of time to kind of digest what we've seen and the witnesses that we've heard from. And yes, Melanie Parker, thank you so much. Leave your DNA on the like button. I promise you that Trooper Proctor won't get it. So, yeah. Yes, LB, the victim impact statements were so sad. All of her, every one of her 5 children, of Jennifer Dulos's 5 children, got up and gave a statement, and they were so powerful and so heart-wrenching. If you do go back and watch it, bring tissues, because it gets me every time with the kids. I know, I hate it. And I know you guys do too. Hello to the glarer. Megan, yes, 20 years, but it was, the sentences were concurrent rather than consecutive. So it turned out to be a total of 20 years, eligible for parole, 14 and a half. That is Michelle Draconis from New Canaan, Connecticut. That was a verdict, or that was a sentencing out of Stamford, Connecticut. For those of you who don't recall, she was the girlfriend of Fotis Dulos, who violently took the life of his wife, Jennifer Dulos, beautiful mom of 5 in New Canaan. And then once he was indicted for her death, he took the coward's way out, and he inhaled some carbon monoxide and went away and left his girlfriend at the time, Michelle Draconis, holding the bag. And that was an interesting trial, as she drove around with him from dumpster to dumpster, garbage can to garbage can, throwing away items. And it's very sad because the body of Jennifer Farber Dulos has never been found. Despicable, I know. And for those who don't recall, stop drinking Canton water. We've heard from how many witnesses so far? I can't even count them, but I can tell you that there are 37 more witnesses that we have not yet heard from on the Commonwealth witness list for the Karen Reed trial out of Norfolk County, Massachusetts, Dedham, Mass. And I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. Still waiting. When are you going to show me some evidence that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car? Okay, tomorrow will be day 19. The jury has given up a lot of their lives on this sort of half-day schedule that seems to be like summer Fridays and summer weeks. And I have yet to see any solid evidence that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car. Haven't seen it. I don't know what happened, but I'm pretty sure that what I've seen so far is not convincing me that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car. There's been 50 already. Oh my gosh, has it already been 50? Wow. Wow. Get merch idea. Still waiting. That's a great one. It's also a Talking Heads song. For those of you who know, you know. As is the thumbnail, I think, that I put up today. And you may ask yourself, how did I get here? How did we get here? How did we get here? Because in order to believe that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car, the first thing that you need to believe is that the Canton PD is incompetent. That's the first thing you need to believe, right? And you may think they are incompetent based on what we've learned so far about how they handled the scene from from jump, from jump. You heard Officer Saraf, who was one of the first witnesses to testify, tell you and the jury that it didn't really matter that the dispatch log was wrong. It wasn't really so important that the address said 32 Fairview instead of 34 Fairview. That wasn't really so important. And the time that they got there wasn't really so important. And the order in which the officers arrived on scene wasn't really important either, because the most important thing was that officers were dispatched to the scene. And yet the scene address was wrong on the dispatch report. So that was very early testimony. And then one might also think perhaps Canton PD is incompetent because they collected blood evidence from the scene in red Solo cups that they obtained from the across the street, but not exactly across the street neighbor, Brian and Nicole Albert, a little diagonally across the street from the deputy chief of police of Canton Police Department himself, Tom Kelleher, who gave up some Solo cups for them to use to collect that blood evidence, even though Canton PD station was only about a mile to a mile and a half away, or still is, not was, but still is only a mile to a mile and a half away from 34 Fairview. They got those Solo cups from I guess he was deputy chief. He was the deputy chief because Chief Berkowitz was on medical leave. So Tom Kelleher, who apparently didn't come out of his house, because everyone's testified that it's okay that Alberts didn't come out of the house because nobody else did either, gave them these red Solo cups. But they said, no worries, no worries. It's totally cool, because it wasn't like they were used Solo cups. I think somebody actually testified that it was a brand new pack of Solo cups. So, we don't know that anybody was really playing beer pong with them or anything night before or that night, even for like a blizzard party or something. And then they weren't, sealed or anything. They were just sort of put into a Stop and Shop bag. For those of you on the East Coast, that Stop and Shop is one of the biggest supermarket chains here on the East Coast, or maybe just in the Northeast. I don't know, but I do know we have them here in New York, Stop and Shops. And so you might think that leads to incompetence. And then maybe you might think that it was a little incompetent that Sergeant Good, who was one of the officers on scene, shot home to his house to get a leaf blower, because Lieutenant Gallagher thought it would be a good idea. So, he just shot home, shot back, because, everybody lives in the same neighborhood, apparently. Wasn't far, wasn't too bad. Only took him a couple of minutes. He went home, he got that leaf blower. We saw Lieutenant Gallagher on video. Some of the only video in this case is of Lieutenant Gallagher wielding a leaf blower. That was Sergeant Good's own personal leaf blower. Because, maybe they don't have police issued leaf blowers in Canton, because they also don't have body cams. So we know that. They have dash cams. We saw some dash cam footage. And then after those Solo cups were put into the Stop and Shop bag, they were transported in Lank's pickup truck, maybe. I mean, we don't know if they spilled in the bag or whatever, but then we did see some additional video, or maybe still photographs of those 6 red Solo cups in the Stop and Shop bag in the Sally Port garage at Canton PD, right next to the murder weapon, Karen Reed's Lexus. That's interesting. It's also interesting because when Karen Reed's Lexus is in the Sally Port at Canton PD, Canton PD had already been conflicted off the case because it just so happens that Kevin Albert, who is the brother of homeowner Brian Albert, stay with me on this. Brian Albert owns 34 Fairview. He's a Boston police officer, as was Boston police officer John O'Keefe, the victim. Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert, was a Canton police officer. See? So when you find a body on the lawn of a brother of one of your police officers in Canton, then you're not supposed to get involved in the case. A chain of fools. But no big whoop. I mean, they couldn't find any. Well, I know they did. No, I'm sorry. They did find the yellow crime scene tape. They did have it, but they said it wouldn't make a difference because it was really windy. We heard a lot of testimony about the wind, and so like we tried to put up the yellow crime scene tape around the scene. The scene, meaning where the body was found on the lawn of 34 Fairview, but it kept like blowing away. So we just didn't. And they were asked if they ever thought about putting up, a tent, like a pop-up tent to sort of like preserve the scene. And yet they were like, yeah, no, we didn't really think about that because, that really wouldn't have been so important. So they didn't do that. And then when they left, like, I don't know, let's see, the 911 call was around 6:04 a.m. They cleared the scene by 8 a.m., I want to say, before 8 a.m. Some of you in the chat probably know the exact time they cleared the scene. And, well, they didn't secure the scene. They didn't leave a patrol car there to make sure that nobody trampled on the scene or did anything to the scene or came upon the scene. There were media there, I think, at some point. And every death is important to a police department. But a death of a police officer, I mean, at least here in New York, I mean, it's all hands on deck. It's officer down, whether he's on the job or not. And everything stops until that investigation of a police officer's death is handled with the utmost care and dignity and integrity. And it wasn't done in this case. So that's what they want you to believe. And then the other day in the chat, one of you, because you guys are so interesting, you have such interesting information, and you email me and you send me things and you comment, and I do read your comments. I don't always get to respond to them, but I do read them. One of you told me about the case of Craig Casey. Does anybody know who Craig Casey is? Don't say it if you know. But tell me if you know who Craig Casey is, because I'm going to tell you who Craig Casey is. Craig Casey was a 30-year-old man who was in a major car accident in Canton on Christmas Eve, 2018. His name is Craig Casey. And he was involved in a fatal motor vehicle accident in Canton on Pleasant Street near Meadows Ave. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because you know that police officer John O'Keefe lived at 1 Meadows Ave. And when Carrie Roberts called it in, she said, yeah, off Pleasant, right? So, I mean, people like receipts. So let's pull up the receipts, okay? Here's the receipts. Let's see. What? This is from something called Enterprise News. And I'll read it to you. This was published all the way back on December 28th of 2018. In Canton. Under the dark sky, officers illuminated the road, front yards of the residential neighborhood, and bushes looking for signs of the driver. It was just after 5:15 a.m., and a vehicle had violently crashed into a tree and flipped on Pleasant Street, but the driver was nowhere to be found. Officers searched the area on foot and in their cruisers, even knocking on several doors in the early morning to ask residents if they had seen anything. Less than 45 minutes later, the vehicle was towed from the scene, and officers cleared the area after not locating the driver. All right, we're going to be clear from down here, an officer says over his radio. We searched the area, it's pretty good, without finding any operator, another officer tells dispatch. But as the sun began to rise over an hour later, a resident made a harrowing discovery. The body of 30-year-old Craig Casey, a Dedham man, was in her front yard. None of the responding officers or anyone else, including several neighbors, the tow truck driver, or the DPW worker, saw him as he was wearing dark clothing, lying motionless, and it was pitch black out. Deputy Police Chief Helena Rafferty told the Enterprise earlier this week. Although we wish we located him earlier, we do not believe it would have changed the outcome at all. Imagine Helena Rafferty, who still is, she still is the chief of police. I guess then she was the deputy chief. Now she is the chief in Canton. Is quoted as saying in December of 2018 that although we wish we located him earlier, we do not believe it would have changed the outcome at all. But Joseph Jackalone, you guys might know Joe Jackalone because he has a YouTube channel. Joe Jackalone, a retired New York City Police Department detective sergeant and currently adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, pushed back on the deputy chief's reasoning for not finding the man. First of all, it's not anybody else's job but the police to find the victim or the perpetrator, he said. It's not the tow truck driver's job. It's not the town worker's responsibility. It's the police's job to find the person. Police say they thought the driver had fled the scene, and they thought their belief was confirmed after a lengthy search of the area with no results. They were also aware that Casey had fled the scene of a significant sideswipe crash, Rafferty said, about 2 miles away in Stoughton, just minutes before the Canton crash. But Casey was found later with heavy trauma, Rafferty said. She didn't indicate whether police believe he may have been ejected from the vehicle when the crash occurred. It's not their call to say the outcome wouldn't have been different if they found him sooner, Jackalone said. We're not doctors, we're cops. I don't know where she got her medical degree, but we don't comment on things like that. It's not uncommon for drivers to be ejected 50 plus feet as the result of a violent crash, Jackalone said. He said common police practices call for a thorough canvass of the area if a driver isn't immediately found on scene. What kinds of clues did they look for? Sometimes there's a blood trail, he said. There could have been other debris, shoes, clothing. I'm just going to break from this document for a second to tell you this is 3 years, and a little more than 3 years. So this is December 2018. Officer O'Keefe was killed in January of 2022. So this is a little prophetic, right? This is 3 years before. You think maybe, I don't know, Canton PD might have learned something from this incident, even from Joe Jackalone, who commented on this article about shoes, because we know only one Officer O'Keefe was brought into the ER with only one sneaker. The other sneaker wasn't found until much later. We still haven't heard about when that other sneaker was found, so hopefully one of these next 37 witnesses can tell us a little bit about that. And back to the article, Jackalone says patrol cops should have been able to find that one. Broken glass from the vehicle was still visible in the roadway days after the crash. But David O'Loughlin, or O'Glaughlin, I guess, depending on where you're from, a retired Brookline police officer and current director of training at the Massachusetts-based Municipal Police Institute, said officers seemed to handle the scene correctly based on the deputy chief's description. Protocol looks right, he said in a brief email. Respond, search for driver, tow the vehicle, continue investigation. With the sun due to come up just over an hour after police cleared the scene of the crash, Jack alone suggested they could have left a patrol car in the area in case the driver returned. Had he actually fled the scene? Or to search for more clues in the daylight? But Rafferty said it was a passing motorist who located Casey's body in the daylight. The crash occurred near the intersection of Pleasant Street and Meadows Avenue, and his body was found in a yard on Pleasant Street. How busy were they that they couldn't have waited, Jack alone said. With the sun coming up in about an hour, they could have held on to the scene for a little bit longer. Pleasant Street residents told the Enterprise that family members of Casey went to the scene on Christmas Eve night searching for answers. The car he was driving was registered to a family member who lives in Stoughton. Sean Casey, a brother of the victim who lives in Stoughton, declined to comment when reached in person by the Enterprise on Thursday. Rafferty declined to provide further specifics. State police detectives assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office responded to the scene and are investigating. Sometimes it's better to throw yourself onto the sword and say, we should have found him, we should have done a better job, and we don't know if it would have changed the outcome, Jack alone said. That, my friends, happened on Christmas Eve, 2018, right around the corner from where Officer John O'Keefe lived, and also involves Canton PD. So I thought you might find that interesting, especially since Helena Rafferty had a couple things to say about that. And Joe Jackalone was in there in 2018 trying to help them come up with some better protocols, like, leaving a patrol car at the scene, searching a little bit harder. And that was a clear car accident. So what? The guy had a sideswipe accident in Stoughton, and so he fled the scene of that one. So they just assumed that in this rollover car accident, he fled the scene as well. What? In order for you to believe that Officer John O'Keefe was involved in a motor vehicle accident, you also have to believe that being struck by a car can cause you to lose your belt. Because we saw him wearing a belt in the footage from the CF McCarthy's, and there was no belt logged into evidence with the clothing that has a mishigas of chain of custody, because Proctor apparently held on to the clothing for weeks, I think, before he turned clothing into evidence. So I can't wait to hear about that. And you also have to believe that butt dials are still a thing, and that Celebrite data is wrong. And we'll hear from experts on that, and that will be interesting, because if they try to say that Celebrite is not the gold standard of cell phone extraction software, they're going to have they're going to open Pandora's box of old cases that are going to want to be overturned for defendants that were convicted based on cell phone data. Yeah, butt dials happen only in Canton. I saw another comment somewhere that said that when they do the documentary on this, or the miniseries, maybe they should call it Booty Calls. That was kind of cute. Thanks, Pretty Eyes. T. Thank you, Rescue Diver 1, for coming in here and saying, as a paramedic, we wouldn't cut a belt off. And I bet you wouldn't cut off a puffy jacket, too, because you know what? They make a mess. If there's any members, please put some puffy jacket emojis in the chat. If you're not a member here, you might want to be, because we have all kinds of emojis just for this case. So we've got puffy jackets, we've got solo cups, we've got fans, we've got it all. What if any? In order to believe that Officer John O'Keefe was struck by Karen Reed's car, you'd have to believe that a polycarbonate taillight can shatter into microscopic pieces. We're going to hear from experts on that too. And you'd have to believe that a taillight could shatter from striking a human body at 24.2 miles per hour. in reverse. You would also have to believe that at least 6 people, at least 6, I believe, who left the house after 12:45 AM, which is the Commonwealth's timeline, that was in their opening statement, that Karen Reed hit Officer John O'Keefe. Well, they can't say officer during trial, and really, they never said a pretrial either, so go figure. Their timeline is that Karen hit John with her car at 12:45 AM. So you'd have to believe that at least 6 people who left after that did not see a body on the lawn, despite the fact that the lawn is pretty small, and their headlights would have shone directly in the area where the body was found the next day. You got Matt and Jem McCabe leaving with the 2 girls who flanked Brian Jr. when Higgins walked in, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson. You've got Caitlin Albert and Tristan Morris, her boyfriend, who came to pick her up at around 2 AM. They didn't see a body either. And Tristan Morris wanted nothing to do with this case and heard they got engaged over like 2 weeks ago or something. So congratulations, Caitlin and Tristan, if you're watching. I hope that you're able to have enjoy your engagement while all of this is going on. So you'd have to believe that nobody saw the body. And then you'd have to believe that Julie Nagel really did see a black blob on the lawn, even though she never told anybody that until she took the stand. And she did say on the stand it was between 5 and 6 feet long. And you'd have to believe that that Scrivener's errors are still a thing. So, you'd have to believe that when Proctor, and I think it was Buchanan who went with him to Dighton to tow Karen's car back, right, on the 29th of January, that the time that they wrote on the report was wrong or something because of daylight savings time. You're gonna have to believe that. She's high maintenance. I know. I felt, I mean, he said that. He did say that Caitlin's high maintenance, and I know that you guys are all watching. And Caitlin, I'm sorry that he said that, but he probably didn't really mean it. Kurt Roberts also got up there and said something about his wife, Carrie, that if he didn't clear the driveway, she'd come home in a mood. Elle says, yeah, and Julie just says nothing the next day, even though she puts 2 and 2 together. Great people. Yeah, I don't know what that is in response to. Mark Stone, 220-pound bodies that are thrown 10 feet off the road, resulting in significant car body damage and far above just a taillight. Well, yeah. And also, you'd have to believe, because we heard the ER doc, Dr. Rice, testify that the injuries that he observed to Officer O'Keefe in the emergency room were laceration above the right eye and what he described as scratches on the right arm. No torso injuries, no leg injuries, no knee injuries, no shin injuries, no ankle injuries. So you'd have to believe that the injuries sustained, which we also know includes a massive laceration to the back of the head, were caused by a low-speed motor vehicle accident. You'd have to believe that too. So I know that people are gonna say, "There's a confession. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And so therefore, she must be guilty. She must be guilty." But what you need to understand is that this was initially treated as a domestic call. It was not treated as a motor vehicle accident. It was treated as a domestic. Because when Katie McLaughlin was interviewed, her statement says, "I asked Karen Reed if she knew what caused the injuries to the victim's face, and she said," I can't remember, she said, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," or "Did I hit him? Could I have hit him?" And so when he was brought in, it was brought in as a domestic, that perhaps she hit him in the face with this glass that they found after they took the leaf blower and blew away the top layers of snow, right? And then you have to believe Jen McCabe when she says that she remembers with 100% clarity. 100% clarity. Karen Reed said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, even though she's never testified anywhere that that's what she said. And even though none of her many, many witness statements that she has given ever said that either. So you have to believe that too. And then you also have to believe that Chloe the dog was rehomed at the same time the state grand jury was hearing testimony to upcharge Karen Reed with murder. That Chloe was rehomed right around that time, just because they didn't feel like dealing with the fact that she had bit a couple of people. But they try to tell you that it's because Chloe was in a fight with another dog, even though 2 other people were sent to the hospital. So, aside from the alleged confession, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," people who believe that absolutely 100% Karen Reed should go to jail, do not pass go. She's definitely guilty. She totally did it, because not only did she say she did it, according to these people, but there were microscopic pieces of taillight found in John's clothing. Well, we haven't heard testimony about that yet, so I'm interested into who's going to testify about that. And also, there was no canine DNA. There was no canine DNA. Case closed. Done. We're done here. Here's the thing. And you don't have to believe me because the medical examiner is going to tell you that no tissue samples were ever taken from Officer O'Keefe's right arm from any of those scratches. No tissue samples were taken. None were preserved. Nothing was swabbed. His arm wounds weren't swabbed. So when the DNA expert came in, the canine DNA expert came in and said there's no canine DNA, well, I mean, I guess we all assumed that John O'Keefe's shirt was sent to the lab, right? So that they could swab it. And no. The lab was sent 2 Q-tips. And the expert was told, yeah, we swabbed the clothing in the area of where, maybe there were some bites. So I can't wait to hear from the medical examiner. That I think the witness that I'm most excited to hear from, aside from Proctor and Buchanan, and they did find pig DNA though. They did find pig DNA. So have no fear. I mean, that could be from a dog chewing on a dog treat. Who knows? Who knows what was swabbed based on the rest of the investigation that we saw? Who knows? So, R.I.P. Craig Casey, and I feel really bad for the woman who found his body on her lawn all the way back in Christmas Day it would have been if this accident happened on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, right around the corner on Pleasant Avenue near Meadows in Canton. Thank you, Queen Olive, Ruth Ann, for becoming a new member. I think you're going to like it here. And Gaylin has been a member for 7 months. Gaylin hasn't been that long. I think that's like day 1. I think that was the first day I even started memberships. So thank you, Gaylin. We have missed you. Happy to be back with the cupcakes. I did receive your email. Have not had a chance to respond to you, but thank you. Missed you so much. Susan Aganello, thank you so much for the super chat. I was beyond impressed with the amount of accolades Michelle received from her loved ones. Well done. Reserved. Yeah. That was going back to Michelle Troconis, and that was bizarre. Every single person that got up to give a statement on her character and how great she is were members of her church who had only met her after the murder. Yeah. Thanks, Carly, for becoming a member. Welcome. And Dawn, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. That's so very generous of you. I appreciate you so much. And to those who are randomly selected to receive memberships, welcome. Welcome. Sue Candell, thank you so much for the super chat. So glad to catch you live. I've been watching some unclassy. You've been watching some unclassy YouTube? No, don't do it. Don't do it, Sue. It's not good for your mental health. This case reminds me of Depp v. Heard in that it is not a clear red versus blue divide, rare in the USA currently. What do you think? Um, I think yes. I think it is as divisive as that case with a couple of differences. Obviously, that case involved celebrities. Obviously, that was not a criminal case. It was not a case where somebody could go to jail for life, which we have here. And this is, any town USA, and Karen Reed could be any one of us. And I've been saying that since I started figuring out what was going on here. But yeah, it is one of the most divisive cases I think that we've seen. OJ maybe too was up there, and that was a criminal case. Lori, Life 360 for the win. Thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. That's 10 new members already today. Thank you guys so much. Sparky 2, am I missing something? Thanks for your super chat. Did John not have on a gray and white sweatshirt? He did. He did, and it had a hood. We saw some video of it, of him and CF McCarthy's wearing it. The CF McCarthy's video was better than I thought. Obviously, the waterfall video. The waterfall video was very grainy and it was very far away, and it was black and white. And wasn't the CF McCarthy's video in color? And what we also did not see in the CF McCarthy's video is all of these drinks and shots that they told us that Karen had. And it was in all of the pretrial motions, all of this evidence that apparently there's video of Karen drinking or pouring 9 shots into her drinks. I don't know when that's coming in. If one of these 37 witnesses is going to talk about it and authenticate the video, but we've already seen that video. And I think that was in the CF McCarthy's video, they said, right? Thank you, Seashell, for becoming a member. Welcome. Lindsay Tyler, thanks for the super chat. Melanie, I heard from a reliable source yesterday, this person lives across the street, that Chloe was rehomed to Easton, Mass. And currently still resides with Tristan and Caitlin. Somebody sent me a photograph of them the other day outside of what looks like PetSmart or something with a dog that looks like a German Shepherd, and people in the chat said, no, that's not Chloe. So I cannot confirm or deny, Lindsay, but thank you so very much for your super chat and your comment. So I don't know. That I do not know. Nicole says she's in Vermont, and Nicole knows exactly where the dog is in case she was ever needed. And told the Commonwealth and the DA exactly where Chloe is, but Chloe never told the defense. Tracy, thank you so much for your super chat. I don't know if they can show me anything that gets me past the broken chain of custody. Yeah. Did they ever test that the blood droplets that they found? And whose blood was it? Was it Officer O'Keefe's blood, or was it someone else's blood? Was it a perpetrator's blood? If Karen threw the glass at him and that's how the glass broke, did they test the glass for DNA and fingerprints and blood evidence? Was Karen's blood found anywhere? I have a lot of questions. And many of you who are on this channel watching this with me right now have followed this case with me since I started covering it in January, and we've been through all of the public documents that we could find and all of the motions and all of the hearings together. And I don't remember anybody ever talking about whether that glass was tested for DNA or fingerprints or anything. They're saying now, I mean, in their opening statement, I think they're saying it was a glass from the waterfall. Nancy, thanks for becoming a member. And Blessed in Texas is being a member for a month longer. Had to get a new email, so I had to start over. Well, thank you, Blessed in Texas. We love you. You're so awesome. Scorpio Moon, thanks for the super chat. Is it true Auntie Bev would have to approve the defense to be able to call Proctor to the stand? No, they can call anybody they want to the stand. I don't know where you heard that. But, there's been some rumblings that maybe the Commonwealth is not going to call Proctor. And I called this early on because in some of those motions in lemonade, as we call them now, because of the closed captionings, it seemed like the Commonwealth was trying to distance Proctor from this case, calling him the co-lead investigator. Ever since it was publicly released that he's under internal affairs investigation by the Massachusetts State Police because of his handling of this specific investigation. They had been trying to distance themselves by calling him the co-lead investigator. So I don't know if they're going to call him or not. And as I've said before, if they call him, they're screwed. If they don't call him, they're screwed. So they're screwed either way. And it's a bad look if they don't call the lead investigator in a murder case. He had his hands in everything. He was made aware of this death very, very early in the morning. And they also want you to believe that Canton PD is incompetent because they didn't find the shoe, they didn't find the baseball cap, and they didn't find 45 pieces of red taillight, despite the fact that they had a leaf blower to get there, to find the red pieces of taillight in the daylight. They didn't find them. You know who found them? Massachusetts State Police CERT team found them later in the evening after Karen Reed's car had been towed all the way from Dighton back to the Canton Sally Port. That's why you heard all of that testimony about the Sally Port and Higgins cutting through the Sally Port. And I have questions about Higgins, whether Higgins even went home that night. I have questions about that because they don't have him swiping in to Canton PD until 1:30. So where was he? Where was he until 1:30? Right, Paige? Found every piece of clear glass, but not red plastic. Please. Yeah. Please. Please. The missing video. Let's talk about that. That was pretty hilarious, by the way. When they had Louis Jutras up there on the stand, he's the IT guy for the town of Canton. And he was asked to pull the footage from the Canton Library. It's a motion activated camera. And he was asked to pull the footage between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. only, not for the whole entire night, only for those 2 time periods between 12 to 1 a.m. and 5 to 6 a.m. There is, we will find out, but those of you who know, I think 3 minutes of video missing between 12 and 1 a.m. at what the defense says is the exact time that Karen Reed would have driven past the library to go back to One Meadows after dropping off John, which they say would show that her taillight was intact. And when poor Mr. Jutras was up there on the stand and Adam Lally handed him a CD-ROM and said, "Do you know what this is?" And he looked at it and he said, "No, never seen this before." And Lally said, and I think he was a little bit taken aback, isn't this the footage that you gave to MSP for the library? And he said, "No, I've never seen that before. That's not what I gave him." That's insane. And apparently, the defense agreed to let it in. They stipulated it in, but Lally would have had a big problem getting that video in because the witness didn't even recognize it. Did he not prep him? And the witness also said, Mr. Jutras said, "I never watched the video at all. I didn't watch it. I just cut the portions they wanted me to cut. I didn't make any edits to it. I didn't cut anything out of it. I just put it on, I think he said, a thumb drive, and I gave it to them, but I never watched it." Hi, Quincy Chick. I missed you too. Yes, Shadow Jones. Missing video. Catering wench. This is a great point. Why can't someone else on Lally's team question witnesses? Might be doing himself a favor. I know, Ms. McLaughlin. Poor Ms. McLaughlin has been there the entire trial. He's not letting her do a thing. And trying a case is exhausting. He's like a one-man band up there. He's playing the accordion, the harmonica. He's got cymbals on his knees, clanking the cymbals, playing a drum. He's doing it all. And that's a lot of work. And I don't know why. Somebody else can't help. Jay Beans, thank you. I literally did a pocket dial last night while watching a segment on pocket dials. Not gonna lie, I do it a lot. Usually that last person I texted, but never 7 times in a row. Love what you do. Yes. And I would say that too. I would say that sometimes if you're clicking on a text, right, and to respond, sometimes it'll call the person by accident. And that's understandable. I do get that. But That's not what Jen McCabe said. Jen McCabe said she did it like 6 or 7 times in a row, and it must have been because she was putting her phone in her back pocket. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you, JPs, for coming in. Gail Pett, thank you for being a member for a month. Says, thanks to all for making this an amazing place to be. Well, we try. We try. We try and keep it classy. We try and not curse. We try and keep out any of the dirty language and the foul words and try not to attack each other. It's a case. It's just the case. People need to just relax. It's just a case. Cover a lot of cases here. In this case, emotions are heightened because people feel that someone is being railroaded and that something else might have happened that it did not include a car accident. That's why it's heightened. Bella Brad, for you. Thank you so much for the super chat. Am I wrong? But didn't they say John had a gash on the back of his head and was a lot of blood? So why only droplets and solo cups retrieved? Yes, exactly. Especially if Karen had blood all over her hands from CPR. Yes. Where's the blood? Where's the blood? We're going to hear evidence that the basement floor at 34 Fairview was replaced, ripped up. Something to consider, something the jury's going to consider. Where's all the blood? They said he lost like something like half the blood in his body. That's why I want to hear from the medical examiner. I want to hear what she has to say. I want to hear why she wrote in her autopsy report, which it hasn't been public. The only things that we know about the autopsy report are what we've read in court documents, portions of. Why did she say twice in the autopsy report, these injuries do not appear to be consistent with a fight? Okay. Well, that also don't appear to be consistent with a fire or a drowning or a skydiving accident or falling off a cliff. But why did she just pick to write they don't seem to appear to be consistent with a fight? Unless there were 2 troopers standing in the room who said, could you please put this in your report? I do not believe, and we will find out when we hear from her, that she did put in her report, these injuries do seem to be consistent with a motor vehicle accident. And I will happily admit that I'm wrong if that is in the report. But I think if it was in the report, that the Commonwealth would have brought that up at some point during the millions of motions that have been filed during the pendency of this case. Jennifer D, thanks for the super chat. We need video of the lab tech's faces when they received red Solo cups in a Stop and Shop bag for testing. Well, it was right there next to her car, right? So, if there's DNA on the bumper, I don't know. Could it have splashed out when somebody put those Solo cups on the ground? I don't know how it got there. They want you to believe also, I think this is where they're going with this, because this is the first time Carrie Roberts ever mentioned any of this, when she says that the whole taillight was missing and there was a big piece of metal sticking out, and she thought to herself, I hope somebody doesn't catch their sleeve on that. I mean, do you think they're going to try and say that the gashes on John's arm were caused by the piece of metal that Carrie Roberts now says was protruding from the taillight? I don't know. Are they going to try and say that it was from the cocktail glass? Because they don't want to say that it's from a dog, right? Or the dog. But was there glass found in his wounds? Because if that happened from a glass, would there be glass pieces in his arm? We don't know, because no tissue samples were ever taken. They are going to tell you that there was pieces of the glass found on the bumper of Karen's car after it was driven all the way to Dighton and then towed back in a blizzard. I don't know if they're going to say that the glass on the bumper is from the cocktail glass or from the polycarbonate taillight pieces. That'll be interesting. Right, look, okay. After the magical mystery Sally Port. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Let's see some Twilight Zone emojis in the chat. Hi, Paw Printed Heart. Thank you for your super chat. If the CW doesn't call Proctor, Wouldn't it make more sense for the defense not to call him either? Biggest point for defense clothing. Commonwealth was scared to do it. No, I think they have to call Proctor. If the Commonwealth does not call Proctor, he has to be called because of the close family ties that he had with the Alberts, because of the statements that he took. None of them were signed. Many of them were done in groups. Jen McCabe started what I think is now going to become a trend, or I don't know how many more people he took statements from, but she said, I never told Proctor that. So if Proctor can't be relied upon to take accurate information, how can the jury believe anything in this case? And we also know that he's got that the text message between Julie Albert to Michael Proctor's sister the same day that Karen was brought into court for her arraignment. Julie Albert is the mother of Colin Albert. That said, tell your brother when all this is over, I want to get him a gift, a thank you gift. What is she thanking him for on the day of Karen's arraignment? I don't know. But you know what else I found interesting, since we're on the subject of Julie and Chris Albert? Take a look at this. And I knew I found it. I had it somewhere. I just had to find it. This is his statement dated. I have to make it bigger for my eyes and for your eyes too. February 21st of 2022. And it's to Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully from Sergeant Yuri Buchanan, who I think may be on the stand tomorrow. Please do not put his nickname in the chat. Please. Thank you. It's a word that YouTube doesn't like that I didn't even really know was a bad word. So who knew? To Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully from Sergeant Yuri Buchanan. And this is the subject of this is the interviews of Chris and Julie Albert at Canton. I don't think they live there anymore. So regarding O'Keefe Motor Vehicle Homicide, Canton. Okay, so they're calling it the O'Keefe Motor Vehicle Homicide in Canton. And this is on February 10th of 2022, which is when Proctor and Buchanan go to take the statements of Chris and Julie Albert. And it says on February 10th, 2022, at approximately 5:30 p.m., Trooper Buchanan and I proceeded to this address to conduct a pre-scheduled interview of Julie and Chris Albert at their residence. This was pre-scheduled. Both Julie and Chris were present at the Waterfall Bar and Grill the night of January 28th, 2022, and then followed to Brian Albert's house in the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022. I knew it was out there somewhere, and I knew we reviewed it, and there it is. So yeah, Yuri can be questioned about this. And look at the date. February 10th is when they go to interview them. They don't even transcribe it until February 21st. And we've learned through pretrial motions that they didn't take any notes when they were doing these interviews. They didn't take any notes. Why would they take notes? That's just silly. No notes. There aren't any notes. None of them were signed. None of them were recorded in any way. And that's the protocol for Massachusetts State Police, my friends. Sorry if you don't like it, but it's the protocol. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it in this case. So did Julie and Chris go to 34 Fairview, or did Julie really go home with a migraine, and did Chris really walk home? I have questions. I have a lot of questions. Notes are for the week. Kurt on civil law in the house. Notes are for the week. Yep. Nope. No notes. No videos. Arkansas Peaches says Chris was there. And go back and watch his testimony if you're new to this case and you didn't know what I just The knowledge I just laid on you. If you didn't know that this was in their statement, go back and watch their testimony again and tell me what you think in the comments. License to chill. It is wicked crazy that this lack of truthful investigating and documentation could happen to a Boston police officer. Yes, to anyone, but to a fellow brother in blue. It boggles the mind. It's mind numbing. Yep. Angela Nicole, just tell them the guy didn't come in the house. You'd have to also believe that all of those group text messages that we've already been shown during the Commonwealth's case were innocent and didn't really mean anything. Just tell them the guy didn't come in the house. And Matt McCabe, who actually looked shell-shocked when he was handed that stack of documents that came from the feds, he didn't know that this was out there. And he didn't have a chance to tell his wife because she came in to testify right after he walked out of that courtroom. He was like, and he said, I think we rewound it a couple of times. Just, oh my God. He says that he was telling the group of Brian and Nicole and Jen, yeah, no, I was just, yeah, no, the TV crew came into D&E Pizza and it said, before this text, it said, yeah, tell Chris to ask them some questions. And I'm thinking, why would Chris be asking the reporters questions? And then it says, tell him just tell him the guy didn't come in the house. The guy that Jen McCabe wants you to believe was one of her best friends. The guy. And Jen McCabe was so gleeful on the stand when she told you that Carrie Roberts was telling them everything, all in caps. And then after that said, I love it. I love it. And then there were some text messages that Brian Albert was shown in that group text message that said something like, it escapes me right now. You ever do that? You're like, Brian Albert was shown those text messages too. And it was about Carrie Roberts being interviewed by Proctor a couple of days later. And Brian Albert said, I just hope that they don't think she's making up stuff after the fact. Somebody said that. And then he said something like, well, if they didn't interview her properly the first time, that's on them. So Joseph Kane, no notes. That's the protocol for Code Red. Yeah. Callie Mae says they took notes. They just threw them away. The jury might infer that, right? I don't know. So back to your question, Paul Printed Heart, I think that the defense must call Proctor, and they absolutely 100% will if the Commonwealth doesn't. But are they going to just call Buchanan because he mostly did everything with Proctor? There wasn't a lot of stuff Proctor did alone and try and pass it off that way. But I mean, that's going to be disastrous either way, in my opinion. Everything I say here on this channel is in my opinion only. And the opinions of my viewers are not necessarily my opinions. Ruby, thank you so much for the super chat. Could Brian Albert have recalled recent Casey case and decided to recreate that scene? Body on lawn, no one saw, clear scene without investigation, nothing unusual. That is really interesting, Ruby. I didn't even think of it that way. I just showed you the Casey case to show you that Canton PD has a long-standing history, potential incompetence, going back all the way to Christmas of 2018, but that's interesting. Except in the Casey case, they found a totaled car. It was a rollover. And then they didn't find the driver, and they were like, oh, all right, well, whatevs. Let's go. We're leaving. Crazy, right? Kelly says, I feel like Lally is sleep prosecuting. I mean, thanks, Kelly. I feel like he's putting the jury to sleep. I mean, you have to, if you're a trial lawyer, you need to be interesting. You need to keep their attention. The opening statement will go down in history as being one of the worst opening statements of all time in a murder case, especially one that has worldwide attention right now. Worldwide viewers, I know it's late. You're across the pond, but if you're in Australia, it's already tomorrow. So let us know where you're watching from because this is worldwide. Hi, Janet. Thanks for becoming a member. And Dog Mom, thanks for being a member 4 months. I love this community. I love it too. Thanks. Thanks, Dog Mom. Hi, Sue. Sorry, Melanie. What I meant is that both red and blue are colorblind in regards to whether they support Karen Reed or the power mafia. I'm in agreement with people my mother wouldn't have approved of. You're talking about politics, right? I'm trying to stay away from politics on this channel, but yes, I think that you're right. I don't think that this is divided along political lines. I don't think so. I think there is a powerful group of people on one side and some other people who just, for whatever reason, think there was a confession here and that we're going to see all of this evidence that we've yet to see. And they don't like Karen Reed's smirk. I've seen a lot of that. So she must be guilty. But yes, I think you're right about the political lines. I don't think it's political. I don't know if you guys do. Thanks for the super chat. D, thank you for the 20. My neighbor works for the state police, not in Massachusetts. He said officers aren't allowed to wander through this heliport. If they have no business, they're not allowed in there. It's a progressive discipline if violated. That's interesting. Because Brian Higgins told us that it was his common practice and habit to cut through the Sallyport often. And he did it all the time. Thank you, Paige, for your super chat. Video allegedly January 29th. No snow and Christmas lights. I don't know what you're referring to, Paige. Oh, the one part of the library video that we saw? Oh, you're talking about that still shot when Jutras was on the stand? And now that you say, I think it did have Christmas lights, right? Oh, listen, I gotta be honest. It takes me a really long time to get my Christmas tree down. So I can't, no judgment. But that's interesting. But yeah, the early morning hours, the 12 to 1 a.m. footage that we looked at, they showed us like a still photograph. There didn't appear to be any snow on the grass. You're right. Thanks, Cindy, for becoming a new member. And thanks, Katie, for super chat. All the witnesses seem deceptive. I'd like to hear from some people in the chat who are new to this case and what you think about these witnesses. Katie, if you're new to the chat or new to this case and you think they seem deceptive, then I will thank you for that opinion. But I think those of us that know everything that happened pre-trial might have just a little bit of a different view or the same view maybe than people who are just starting to watch it for the first time. And the jury has to be so confused. 18 days of testimony has gone by and they're like, okay, when are we going to hear about this car accident? Because we heard about all the first responders from Canton PD. Nobody found tire tracks. Nobody found any footprints. All they found was 6 drops of blood in solo cups and a broken cocktail glass. That's all. They haven't heard about the hat. They haven't heard about the shoe. They haven't heard about the 45 pieces of taillight yet, except for some talk about Chief Berkowitz driving down Fairview. 6 days later, and oh, look, there's a piece of taillight. And he calls it in. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man. Do we believe that? Chucky Zidell, thank you for being a member from Toronto, Canada. Speaking of my poor Rangers, I'm very upset. I'm in grieving right now. It was a terrible, terrible loss last night, but we'll get it next year. And BB2, thank you, Aunt BB2, for your super chat. You're the first member ever that I had in my channel, and you'll go down in history as being my first member ever. The officer that went into the foyer said there was no probable cause to search the home. If so, wouldn't everything on the lawn be tossed since there was no search warrant requested? Thank you. Wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you think they would have searched that lawn with a fine-tooth comb? And I'm not saying that they didn't. Maybe they did. But the only thing they've got video of is Gallagher and the leaf blower finding the glass. And I think they probably did search the lawn very carefully. They just didn't find the taillight pieces that showed up something like, if they cleared the scene by 8 and they find the taillight pieces around 6 p.m., on top of the freshly fallen 20 inches of snow that came later? I mean, isn't that what happened, or are they gonna say they had to dig for it? Um, yes, I agree. I think, Aunt BB, that, who was it? Officer Saraf who said, "Oh, no, there would be no reason to search the house." No, no. I've been screaming since I heard about this glass pre-trial. How do we know they didn't have those kind of glasses in their cabinet? And when Michael, I think it was Lank, right? Was it Lank who pulled the cocktail glass out of the evidence bag? He puts on the gloves to take out the glass from the evidence bag, and then before he touches the evidence, he touches his face, and then he Sergeant Lank is also the one who told you he's never used evidence tape before in his life to tape up, a bag of evidence, and they pulled the glass out of the bag, and what struck me, as being a person who enjoys fine glassware, is that the base of that glass was very, very thick. It was very thick. I need to go back and watch it again. But it did not look like a glass that would come from a bar. It looked like an expensive piece of cocktailware. Does anybody cocktailware? Tell me, does it I mean, if I'm crazy, just tell me I'm crazy, because literally this case, I think, is making me crazy. Lawn and Order executive producer Dick Wolf. That is very, very good. That's very good. Lawn and Order. Team Brittany, you win. You win tonight. Comment of the evening so far. One of my amazing moderators. My moderators are the best on YouTube. They really are. And look, there's over 3,000 of you in here right now, and they're keeping it tight. They keep it tight. You don't even know how amazing my moderators are. Okay, you're crazy. Mozzie. I know you're in Australia and it's tomorrow already, but I'm not crazy. If I'm crazy, you're crazy. I'm crazy, you're crazy. It was a highball glass, Francis Fitzgerald. Yes, I agree. But from when I saw him pull it out, it looked like the base of it, you know what I mean? Like where there's no liquid, like the base of the glass looked to me to be very thick. So I don't know. And then Pretty Eyes says, yes, it was. Think yet the upper part seemed thin. There wasn't too much of the upper part. He kind of pulled out like the stump of the glass, right? So I'd like to see some more of that video where John is standing outside with this glass in his hand. Because it looked like I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, like a highball glass, right? Like a short glass with a thick base. It did not look like one of those tall cylindrical glasses, a thinner glass that you might have a soda in, or depending on the bar, like a vodka tonic or whatever. Thank you, Susan Agnello. No, sorry, no apologies necessary. Sorry to backstep, but I need to send a correction. I meant I was impressed with all the accolades Jennifer Dulos received, not Michelle. Okay. Then I addressed your comment the wrong way. Yes, Jennifer Dulos received some really amazing victim impact statements from everyone who knew and loved her. Her mother, so many friends that she had from childhood, all of her children. Yes, and this goes back to the Michelle Troconis case, and very, very sad. Christine, what are your thoughts on the jury nullifying this case? Well, I think there's just gonna be an acquittal. I don't think they're gonna nullify it. I think there's just gonna be an acquittal. Based on what I've seen so far, I think that they're gonna say we just haven't seen any evidence. How can we convict without any evidence yet? I mean, look, there's still 37 people on this witness list that they could call. I think it's too early to make that judgment, Christine, but I thank you for the super chat. Martian Planet Art, thank you for your super chat. I keep wondering, is there a vehicle that went to an auto shop after this incident for body work other than Karen's vehicle? I wonder. Like, did anybody take John's car in? Did John's car need to get fixed? Because remember, when we heard from Michael Camerano, who was with John earlier in the day, who went to get John, right, to go to Waterfall, to go to TF McCarthy's. He said that John was like clearing the driveway for Karen so she could park in the garage, because she usually didn't park in the garage. So she wasn't used to parking in the garage and backing out. And he had moved his car over to the side, so she hit his car. Like, did that car ever go in for repairs? I don't know. I don't know, and that's a great question. Melissa Smith, hi, thanks for the super chat. After this trial's over, or 2027, whichever comes first, will you and Brandy host a ladies' night for us, whatever that might be? Yes, sure. Brandy was I saw some pictures of her at CrimeCon. So a lot of people are at CrimeCon, and I heard that Emily D. Baker was there and did an amazing speech yesterday. Haven't had a chance to find it or look for it or even know what it was about, but I'm interested to see that. So yeah, sure. Let's do a ladies' night. Maybe we can get Natalie, the lawyer chick. I mean, Emily Baker's really, busy and really famous. So I don't know if we could get her on here, but who knows? Who else we have? Maybe Andrea Burkhart would want to come on. Maybe Legal Bites would come on. I mean, we could do like a power hour of women. Jessica, thank you so much for the 10. Thank you for breaking down the case for us. My boyfriend and I have followed you since the trial started, and you make the most sense. We can read justice for John. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. A lot of people said that a lot of women have said that they've gotten their men interested in this case. And there are so many more men following this case than usually follow the other cases that I cover in true crime. So the men are showing up for this one. And I'd like for you guys to tell me why. Is it because you think that this could be anyone that you know, like your girlfriend, your mother, your sister, your daughter? What is it about this particular case? If you're not even following true crime or never really did as a guy or a girl, and this is a particular interest to you, why? L. Parker says exactly what I just asked. Thank you for the super chat. This captivated everyone, maybe, knowing it can happen to anyone. Thank you for your coverage from Colorado. Go Buffs. Go Buffs. I'm a proud alum of the University of Colorado at Boulder. Go Buffs. Coach Prime, this is going to be such a great year. This is going to be such a great year, El, because we coming. Coach Prime says we coming. And what's great is that so many of the games are going to be on national TV, and I don't have to go find out where the Pac-12 channel is anymore. Mark says, going back to why people are interested in this case, it's about the cover-up. Thank you, Mark Baumeister, for that. Daisy says, because it's not simple. There's a lot going on. Yes. Shannon says, my husband hates this stuff, but he asks to listen to trial when he has time during the day and asks me for a report daily. I know like men who are like, I can't believe there's no trial. What am I going to do? Like people are really, really riveted. Because you can't make it up. You just can't make it up. If you tried to tell somebody about this case in an evening, you never would be able to. It would take days. So when you have your conversations, you have to talk to somebody who's as invested in it as you are. Kind of like the Depp v. Heard stuff. People were invested in that too. Dina, what angers me is here in Massachusetts, we want things to be transparent and we want justice for Officer John O'Keefe. Karen proven innocent, someone held accountable, and restored faith in our police. I hear from a lot of local people. And my Massachusetts audience, a lot of you say the same thing. That you've known that this stuff has been going on for years and years and years. Jimmy says it's as if watching the Salem witch trials in real time. I think a lot of people feel that way too. CN Red Flag says, I feel like this case is an attack on women. Well, CN Red Flags, some people see red flags and some people see a parade. That's what they say, right? And I get attacked every time I say this. So I'm going to say it again. Why not? Not only do I feel like this case is an attack on women, I feel like this case is an attack on successful women. And I'm going to tell you why. Karen Reed is very successful. She makes a lot of money. I don't know if she's working now, but at the time, she made a lot of money. She probably made more money than John O'Keefe, than her boyfriend. She did not need a man to support her. She was single in her 40s, and she probably had nice savings, nice car, owned a home. And the vitriol that's been spewed at her for her facial expressions, her wardrobe, her outfits are too expensive that she wears to court. Her skirts are too short that she wears to court. It's disrespectful to the court. I don't know. I've never seen anything like that. Is that how about we talk about the facts of the case? Really? I don't know. It's gross. Kelly, can you do a show with Attorney Betterow? That would be fun. If he reaches out to me, sure. Brittany, I've been watching Lawyer Lee too lately. She's pretty great. Yes, I forgot about Lee. She used to be a Harvard lawyer, Lee. Her husband recently passed away. So sad. So I don't know if she's back streaming or if she's still, getting over that. Prayers up for Harvard lawyer Lee, who dropped the Harvard from her name. So she's now just Lawyer Lee. But I've always enjoyed her coverage a lot. And we're thinking about you and praying for you and hoping that, grief is a tough thing. It's hard to talk about. DK says it's a level of drama that speaks to both genders. That is interesting. Scott, one of my other amazing moderators who is a retired NYPD, says because it was a brother. Hold on one second. The dog needs to go out. All right. And that's what Scott says, because it was a brother in blue, and it's I back the blue 100%. I have law enforcement in my family. Many of my dear friends are firefighters, police officers. And this isn't about bashing cops, but the investigation that was done here is disgraceful, in my opinion. LB says it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. MD says I have coworkers onto it. One's husband is a sheriff and he is in on it now. Zimmy from the bus stop. Oh, that's going all the way back to the Maya case. Have you been here since Maya with me? Thank you. Thanks for hanging in. The Maya Kowalski case, one of the attorneys for the hospital called the jurors bus stop people, and it kind of stuck. Zimmy says, I got interested because I saw one of the hearings. Rosemary Gallagher coming in says Karen was alternating with a glass of water that night, according to the bartender. Which bartender? Is that bartender going to come and testify? Or was it the bartender who already testified from the waterfall? I didn't think she had that much to say. Did she say that? Sunshine, this case is so outrageous, everyone should be concerned. Mm-hmm. Yes, designer of them. Boulder is hippie central. Sure is. Got my tie-dye on and everything. Got some Grateful Dead dancing bears in the back. We have a Grateful Dead emoji. A couple of Grateful Dead emojis for those who like to partake in the Deadhead culture. Rob Geary says it's the absolutely blatant corruption with no regard for truth or justice. Yeah, it is. It's like the witch trial. It's like burn her. Throw her in the water. If she floats, she's a witch and we'll burn her. If she sinks, she's not a witch, but she's dead anyway. Kim Robinson says the judge is protecting the Alberts, Higgins, and the McCabe's. Quincy says, when my husband comes in, he literally asks me directly what is going on with the case. I think they are captivated because the defense is so good at their job. The defense is so good at their job, and the prosecution is so bad at their job. It's like, who made Lally the fall guy? Lally is the fall guy here. Like, you think Michael Marcy was going to come in and try this case? Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait until they put him on the stand. That is going to be great. And he better be forced to testify. Ooh, after making that hostage video in August of 2023, declaring how nobody in the house was guilty of anything. These are good people, and this has to stop. This must stop. Come on, man. Jerome, hello, Jerome. Thanks for the 20. I believe in the conspiracy. The only question is, how far up does it go? How high up in that police department does this go? Or was this all literally contained in-house? FYI, your eyes are mesmerizing. Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is the thing. When people say, there's got to be hundreds of people involved in this conspiracy. No, not really. Not really. Like, I think the conspiracy is not that these other people conspired. The conspiracy is that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car, right? So if a couple of people say, as they said in their text messages, just tell him the guy didn't come in the house, it could perhaps be those 4 people who were on that text chain sticking to a story with maybe 2 other family members and a friendly. There doesn't need to be hundreds of people involved. When you couple that with an incompetent investigation, confirmation bias, maybe, with an investigation being steered in a certain direction, there doesn't have to be that many people, Jerome, if that answers your question. And that's, my opinion. Brady Goat 12. Oh, I love Tom Brady too. Thanks for your super chat. We're here because corruption sucks. Yep, it does. As just, potentially maybe trying to pin something on a woman that she didn't do that could send her to life in prison. Tracy Vagan, thank you for the 5. My husband said if I was going to do it, it would not be in reverse. It would be head on. Right on, sister. Right on. Exactly. Hi, girl. Rye, thank you for the 5. It's riveting, and you're right. You can't make this one up. But moreover, it's terrifying that it could be any of us. Yeah. Where are the tire tracks? Where are the injuries that match up on the lower body? People are saying, oh, well, he had internal injuries. Okay. He had internal injuries because he was hypothermic. That will cause your pancreas to discolor. There was no abdominal trauma. That's what got me hooked on this case, was the injury side of it. I'm not seeing injuries caused by a car accident. I couldn't get past it. And the more I dug and the more I dug and the more I dug, the more I saw like all of this other nonsense. And we can't convict a woman and put her in jail for life when those of us who have maybe some common sense and logic are looking at this like, WTF? How did we get here? How did we get here? Kelly, thank you for the super chat. Chloe started her on Twitter. It makes my day. I don't know what you're talking about. Della, thank you. The FBI has everything. This is tying it up. Okay. Let's all breathe a collective deep breath and hope that Della is telling us what is up. Thank you, Maureen Francis, so much for your Cash App. I always appreciate you so very much. Chantal, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months, and says 6 months of strained credulity. That was also from the Maya trial. One of the attorneys in every single pleading would use that term. It strains credulity to think that blah, 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 blah. And it stuck. It stuck. Was Greg I think, was it Greg Anderson who wrote that? A Sparky too, thank you for the super chat. Men have been going through this for years. I ask everyone to watch the Zach Anderson trial. Okay, I'm going to write that down. Zach Anderson. Thank you. Thank you, A Sparky too. And Aunt BB, thank you. Aunt BB says, I would absolutely love it if the FBI just walked in and said, Auntie Beth, put the gavel down. Lally, go to the corner. This farce is over. I don't know that they can do that. And I don't know that Michael Marcy is going to drop this case because his ego is too big. His ego is way too big. Dreamer Thinker, thank you so much for the 20. Isn't it possible that this whole plan, once Karen wouldn't take a plea, the 34 Fairview team's goal is simply to create confusion. Karen will be found not guilty, but no other prosecution after, so they get away with it. People have surmised that, yes, that originally, because she would not take a plea, or I don't even know if she was offered a plea after the original charges, that they then convened the state grand jury sometime in the spring of 2022 and then upgraded her charges to murder, second-degree murder, in June. Some people do think that it was because she would not take a plea. But then by upgrading the charges, she's really not gonna take a plea. So, I don't know. I mean, their logic is so skewed, but every time I hear one of these people testify, I'm amazed. So who knows what anybody's thinking, except for maybe there's some people who wanna protect some other people. That's the only thing that, makes sense. Or who knows? Maybe he got out of Karen's car, people think. She drove away and then he got hit by a snowplow or another car. I don't know. I don't think that she hit him with her car. I don't know who did it, but I don't think it was her car that did it. Sue, thank you for the super chat. My French husband is shocked by the widespread corruption. This would never be exposed to the public here in France until 50 years later, at least. I love France. I'll come visit you, Sue. Can I come visit you? Debbie, thank you for the super chat. I've seen several lawyers on YouTube of all different specialties say the exact same thing. How and why did this go to trial? I've seen it too, because oftentimes when I was out here screaming into a closet before the trial, all the way back in January when I started covering it, um, I started thinking, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy? This is so obvious to me as a practicing attorney. What's going on here? And I feel so much better now that people are also seeing what I'm seeing. It makes me feel validated. Thank you. L. Parker, thank you for the 10. Why get rid of phones that by those that know better? No way that isn't guilty, right? Is that consciousness of guilt? Do you throw away your phone and crack your SIM card and then get a new number and a new cell phone carrier? How about this? How about this? Brian Higgins, since we're on Brian Higgins right now. And Brian Albert did the same thing too, by the way. Brian Higgins won't even admit on the stand that he's being ghosted by Karen, right? He's talking about how he wants the real deal. He wants the real deal with her. And he's trying to suss her out and make sure she's not trying to pull a fast one and she doesn't really think he's hot. He's trying to suss it out, Sending her pictures of Smirnoff Ice screwdrivers, um, telling her she's hot, telling her he wants the real deal. And then she ghosts him and he doesn't hear from her for a couple of days, but he won't admit that he's been ghosted. But then he sends her a text while they're at the waterfall and she shows up with John. He's like, well, like 11:30, 11:32 or something. And he's questioned about it and she never responds. And then at 12:20, he texts John, you coming here? With 2 question marks. You coming here? Which is around the same time that Jen McCabe is on the phone with John, right? Giving him directions because, nobody thought to give him directions when they were at the bar or tell him the address. And then the next day, she says to him, John died. And even though he wants the real deal with her, he's trying to suss her out, make sure she really thinks he's hot, trying to get in, trying to get his chance. He never contacts her again. Never again. That is another thing that I just can't get past, right? If he really wanted to be with her and now the obstacle of John is gone, why couldn't he come in like the White Knight, try and save her, try and be the guy, who's, helping, like every other first responder friend that I have who'd want to help. I don't get it. Thank you, Paige, for your super chat. Yet even the ER doctor tried to say EMT, said possible vehicle hit before Little showed him the report. Yeah, it wasn't in the report. It wasn't in the report. Oh, and here's something else that I came across while I was prepping for tonight's show. Some of the old documents that we went through, which, since we're here, might as well look at it, right? It's the original police report from the Canton PD. And if you've been with me for a long time, you've seen it. I don't know if it's been admitted into evidence, so I don't know if we'll see it or if the jury's going to see it, but I'm going to show it to you because we have it, because we're a document fact-based channel. So here's the original Canton Police Department incident report from January 29th of 2022, and at 6:08 a.m. was the date and time it was reported. The date and time that the report was written was 8:24 a.m. Okay, so they have already cleared the scene by 8:24 a.m. Canton PD. And it says here, status, no crime involved. No crime involved. 8:24, when they cleared that scene, they did not believe that there was a crime involved. And here we sit. Tomorrow will be day 19 of Karen Reed's trial for second-degree murder, my friends. But like I said, they want you to believe that Canton PD is incompetent. And then it says here, who is involved, right? They got Karen Reed with her phone number. Doesn't really say much about her, 41 years old. Events. Location type. Residence. 32 Fairview Road, Canton. Okay. So when they typed up their report at 8:24 a.m., and they knew damn well that it was 34 Fairview, their report says 32 Fairview Road. Okay. But the dispatch logs weren't important to be accurate. And so I guess neither was the official police report. And it's an incident report. Okay. And having handled, during my 30-year career as a practicing lawyer, hundreds, if not thousands of motor vehicle accident cases, I can tell you with absolute certainty, if they believed it was a motor vehicle accident, there would be a motor vehicle accident report. There is not one. There is not one. Unless it's going to magically appear like the magical mystery tour of the Canton PD. This is an incident report that we're looking at. Again, 32 Fairview. Victim, John O'Keefe. Injuries, other major injury. Taken a Good Samaritan by Canton Fire Department. Treated at 6:08. And then we have the witnesses. Jennifer McCabe as the reporting party because she called 911. Carrie Roberts as the reporting party. Brian Higgins, whose phone number was changed when they supplemented this report. B. Albert. B. They just say B. Albert, not Brian Albert. Just B. Albert at 34 Fairview. They didn't put his address on the report for a reason. Can anybody guess why? Do you believe that the Canton Police Department might know where every single law enforcement officer in town lives, whether they're with Canton PD or not? And he happens to be a brother of a Canton police officer. B. Just B. Just B. Albert. That's all we need is B. And this was his phone number that he then changed. Nicole Albert, his wife. Matthew McCabe. And these are all listed as witnesses, okay? Witness. After Carrie, everyone's a witness. Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe, Brian Albert Jr., but it doesn't say junior. It says Brian Albert, but he's born in 1999, so we know that he's junior. And this is his birthday, remember? So this poor kid is never going to have another normal birthday for the rest of his life. Oh, that's interesting. So his home phone, I don't know. I can't read that. 0688 or 0888. And it's the same number up here for B. Albert, the dad. So he must have only given the home phone number. Caitlin Albert is a witness. Tristan Mars is a witness. Julie Nagel is a witness. How come none of these witnesses, Brian Jr., Caitlin Morris, Tristan Morris, and Julie Nagel, were ever interviewed until something like 18 months post this incident? How come certain people were left off as witnesses? Sarah Levinson's not on this report. Colin Albert's not on this report. Chris and Julie Albert aren't on this report, even though their witness statement says they went to 34 Fairview. And here's the properties that were taken, or the evidence. Got a broken drinking glass. And it says here the owner is John Joseph O'Keefe. And then we've got 6 solo cups with blood and water. And it's evidence. They're both listed as evidence. And it says owner, John Joseph O'Keefe. And then they go on through their we don't need to read the whole thing. But there's so many things that from jump were just didn't make any sense to me. Here, at 12:14 a.m., John texted Jennifer McCabe asking where they were going. Jennifer invited them to 34 Fairview Road. A short time later, Jennifer stated she saw Karen and John pull up in their car and saw the passenger door open, but they never came in and she saw the car drive off. Jennifer just thought they changed their mind and went home for the night. I'm sorry, did Jennifer ever testify on the stand that she saw the passenger door open? Because this is the report that was typed up at 8:34 in the morning by Canton PD. Hmm. He says, and this is written by Sergeant Good and I think he's the author of this, right? Sergeant Good. And you remember Good. He's the one who hopped home to get his leaf blower and got back. Big whoop. No big whoop. Jennifer just thought they changed their mind and went home for the night. He says, I walked over to Karen and asked her who she was and how she ended up here. I also placed Karen in the back of my marked Cruiser 682 to warm up. Karen was hysterical and continually saying, is he dead? Kept reassuring her that Canton Fire was doing everything they can to save his life. I asked how John ended up there and she stated, I don't know. I asked her if she drove here last night and she said, I think so. Then I can't remember. At this point, I stopped asking questions because she was too upset and she was unable to keep her train of thought. Okay, so that's when she's in the back of the Cruiser. And that's when Jen McCabe says that she was in the car with her praying, the Our Father praying and holding hands and praying. And that she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. But Sergeant Good doesn't put Jen McCabe in the car with her. So that's a little interesting nugget. All these people have already testified, so don't worry. I'm not spoiling anything. Again, Canton Fire began to transport the victim to Good Samaritan, and Karen, who was now sitting in Kerry's car, began to act out, yelling and screaming, is he dead? Trying to get out of the car and walk around. At this time, I advised Kerry to take Karen home and that she was not needed anymore. Moments later, I was contacted by dispatch that Karen was making suicidal statements to her father over the phone. I made the decision to have Kerry bring Karen back to the scene and had her transported to the hospital via Section 12. Detective Sergeant Lank at this time contacted the homeowners at 34 Fairview and completed a supplemental report. Again, dispatched. This is Saroff. Dispatched for a report of an unresponsive party in the snow. There's a man passed out in the snow. I asked if he was a drug user, and they said no, he's a Boston cop. Following that, Karen kept screaming, is he dead? Is he dead? She was severely distraught, and I was not able to tell me what happened. I tried to console her, keep her out of the inclement weather. I had her sit in one of the cars. Sergeant Good arrived and started speaking to the parties that were there. So Officer Mullaney. Officer Mullaney says that he assisted Canton Fire Department with lifting the victim onto a stretcher. The victim was then taken by stretcher to the ambulance. He doesn't say anything about the phone being found. Remember, Carrie Roberts said that when they put him on the scoop stretcher, she saw John O'Keefe's phone underneath his body, took it and put it in her pocket. And then she gave it to a police officer, but she doesn't know who. I'm very interested to find out more about that testimony. I asked McCabe, here, she's talking to Jen McCabe. This is Mullaney. I asked McCabe if she possibly knew how long the victim had been where he was found, and she told me he was dropped off by Reed sometime between 12 and 1 a.m. He was dropped off by Reed. That's what Jen McCabe said. That morning, she said that. Her story has morphed throughout the years and through the different stages of her testimony and places that she's testified. While talking to McCabe, Reed was hysterical and distraught and repeatedly screamed, "Is he dead? And that's my boyfriend." And then she is sectioned. If they thought that Karen Reed murdered him, don't you think they would have detained her? Here's Sergeant Lank. Finally, they're saying he's a Boston police officer in grave condition. He says at 6:08 the conditions were blizzard-like. We've heard a lot about the weather. The first person that I spoke to was McCabe, Jennifer. She was able to provide a general timeline. We know the timeline. 12:14 a.m. O'Keefe texted Jennifer and asked where they were going. Jennifer responded that they were going to 34 Fairview Road. Moments later, a vehicle pulled in front of the house, which Jennifer believed was O'Keefe. Moments later after 12:14 a.m., which Jennifer believed was O'Keefe and his girlfriend, Reed. She observed as the vehicle just sat out in front of the house for several minutes. The vehicle was facing uphill with the passenger side facing the house. She thought that the vehicle sat outside for at least 15 minutes. McCabe stated that neither party ever came to the door, and ultimately the vehicle drove away. She attempted to text O'Keefe, but never got a response. Approximately 1:30 a.m., McCabe and her husband leave the house and give a ride home to Julie Nagel, who lives on Highland Street in Canton. What did she forget? She forgot that she also gave Sarah Levinson a ride home. Why? Why didn't she want to mention Sarah Levinson? Okay. Approximately 4:53 a.m., McCabe was contacted by Reed and the niece. They were distraught because O'Keefe never arrived home and was not answering his phone. McCabe and Reed attempted to call some of O'Keefe's close friends, including Roberts, Kerry. Approximately 5 a.m., Roberts picked up McCabe and Reed to go looking for O'Keefe. Doesn't jive with what we've been told. Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe said that Kerry showed up at Jen's house. Karen showed up at Jen's house without even telling her. How would she even know where he lived? So much of this stuff is so fakakta that I don't know what to believe anymore. Officers on scene were able to secure the scene as best they could as the weather conditions continued to be severe. State Police CPAC unit was contacted at 6:38 a.m. Trooper Proctor called back within a few minutes and was made aware of the situation. Proctor is aware of the situation within minutes of 6:38 a.m. Trooper Michael Proctor, who has close family ties to the Alberts, is on notice of this before 7 a.m. Higgins already told us that he came back by 7 a.m. Lang says the only statement that Karen Reed was able to relay to Canton officers while on scene was that she did not remember ever being at Fairview Road. Next, I went into 34 Fairview Road and spoke with the homeowners, Brian and Nicole Albert. Both parties from this point forward will be referred to by their first names. Brian and Nicole recalled that the victim had been welcomed to come to their house, but he never arrived. Tell them the guy never went in the house. When asked about O'Keefe's demeanor or if O'Keefe had any altercations with anyone earlier at the bar, because remember, it looked like he was beat up, Brian said he seemed to be fine at the bar and there were no issues whatsoever. He wasn't playing grab ass with you like Higgins was. McCabe Matthew, husband of Jennifer, also stated that he'd observed a vehicle pull up in front of the house, but he never saw either party get out of the vehicle. Matthew also reiterated what Brian said. O'Keefe seemed to be fine at the bar, and there was really nobody else in the establishment other than their group. Next, I asked Brian and Nicole who else was at the house that night. Aside from the names already mentioned, the following people were present at some point during the time in question: Brian Albert Jr., Caitlin Albert, Julie Nagel, and Brian Higgins. They advised me that their daughter, Caitlin, left the house around 12:15 a.m. when she was picked up by her boyfriend, Tristan Morris. Who's missing? Who's missing from the narrative? Well, we know now that Caitlin left at 2 a.m., not 12:15. We know Colin was there at some point during the night because he admitted it on the stand. We know that Sarah Levinson was there because she was driven home by the McCabes. You can't make this up, friends. You just can't make this up. This is the police report that was written at 8:24 a.m. on January 29th of 2022 by the Canton PD. While still on scene, Lieutenant Gallagher, Sergeant Good, and I attempted to retrieve as much evidence as possible. Given the weather conditions, Lieutenant Gallagher was able to use a leaf blower to blow away the top layers of snow. We were able to observe a broken drinking glass and multiple patches of red, which appeared to be frozen blood drops. 6 samples of this substance was retrieved by using red Solo plastic cups. The broken glass was retrieved and bagged into evidence. Bagged. Did they put that in the Stop and Shop bag too? I don't remember what bag they put the glass in. Both items were returned to the Canton police station and logged into evidence. At approximately 9 a.m., I was contacted at the police station by Jennifer McCabe. She asked if it was possible to come back to 34 Fairview Road and speak with her. Because remember, there was a friends and family meeting from the time that Higgins got there until 9 a.m. when Jen McCabe called and said, "Can you come back? I forgot to tell you some stuff." She called Lank. What did I say, Gallagher? Lank. Lieutenant Gallagher and I both immediately left and arrived back at 34 Fairview within a few moments. And I have questions about this too because it's after 9 a.m. Officer John O'Keefe was pronounced dead at 7:50 a.m. Canton PD was conflicted out. Why did they go back and speak with her? Proctor was already on notice at 6:38 a.m. He doesn't interview them until later at 11. And for that interview, he goes to McCabe's house. McCabe told us that she recalled something that she was not sure if we were aware of. She said that when Reed was driving around with her and Roberts looking for the victim, she said something to the effect of, "I hope I didn't hit him." McCabe told us that she made these statements again at the scene when the victim was discovered. She thought that Reed may have made these statements in front of a police officer, but she was not sure. And that, my friends, was the original case. I took off the wrong person. I took off the document instead of myself. Or myself instead of the document. Whatever. It's late. We got to get up early. We have trial tomorrow. You got to be on top of this. Della, thanks for your super chat. Says, thanks for your coverage. We know your sacrifice. Thank you, Della. I appreciate you. Wicked Wookie, thank you for your super chat. Talk to Nick Staros if you want the Zach Anderson info. Case hinges on Touch DNA and involves the same judge from Rittenhouse. Excellent. I'll write that down. Thank you for that. Tracy Fagan, thank you again. I find it hard to believe that the Fugitive Task Force doesn't know how to use their phones for forensics. Of course they do, Tracy. In order for that you'd have to have a lot of assumptions to think that they're also that incompetent, right? Come on. Deb, thank you for your super chat. How about the guys drove back from New York? Higgins talked about his love interest with the Karen they all knew. And why did Jen want Karen to ride with her? They planned to frame her all along. I don't know, Deb. I don't know. Because in order to believe that, you'd have to believe that whatever they did to John, they intended to do. I just think that something went wrong. Something went wrong somewhere. And then, if there was a plan formulated, it formulated like on the fly, I mean, that's what I think. Or, maybe he got out of the car and something else happened to him. I don't know. But that's an interesting concept. But do guys talk about stuff like that? Like, he swore that but he said he talked to his supervisor about Karen and his kiss with Karen, which I thought was so weird. A woman. I wonder if she's on the witness list. Witless. That's what we should call them. Witnesses. Ta-da! They're not witnesses, they're witnesses. I love it. Thanks, Deb. Hey, Sparky. Thanks again. Why was she charged with DUI? Why was she only charged with DUI? I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to say, Ace Sparky, but look, the blood that they took at the hospital, and we saw the testimony on that on whatever the hell day it was last week that we had trial. Was it only Tuesday? You heard the poor guy who they said, if you don't speak up, we're going to shut the fans off. And then she said, we're shutting the fans off because you're not loud enough. That poor guy, the pathologist, said, listen, the blood that we take and the serum that we take in the hospital we are not in the business of testifying. We don't take blood for legal reasons. That's not what this is. He said it every possible way he could, even when they turned off the fans. He said, we try to take all the alcohol swabs out of the ER, but, we can't really. And then I think he couldn't even point to who drew the blood. So, we saw a motion in Lemonade about trying to get this blood alcohol results thrown out. And this guy told you, we are not in the business of taking blood for blood alcohol results. We're just not. That's not what we do here. And then you saw that very nice man come in, Nicholas Roberts, who used to work at Massachusetts Crime Lab, and he testified about the extrapolation. And he admitted on the stand, look, our results are only as good as the information we're given. If we're not given the proper time of the last drink, the results are really not valid. And remember, her blood was drawn after 9 a.m. and the Commonwealth told him that her last drink was around 12:45, which is when they're saying that she hit him. But if she went home and she had a couple more drinks and she was texting him and angry texting him and leaving angry voicemails for him, as women sometimes do, maybe she was drinking for a few more hours after that. Because remember, Higgins went home after he went to the Canton PD to do some administrative work by moving a couple of cars around because the key was on his desk and he had to go there and move the cars around in the blizzard, and then went home, had a couple more drinks, and then went to bed. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the person might get home at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning in Higgins' case and have slam back a couple of more before you pass out and then do some butt dialing. I don't know. Della, thank you. If Karen didn't have money, she'd have been in jail for over 2 years. You're absolutely 100% right. Proctor misspelled every name at the house that night. Disgusting. Everyone knows that it's a cover-up. Thank you, Della. Ace Parky 1. Why was she the one charged with DUI? Right. Well, in order to prove it, they're going to have to prove that she was the one behind the wheel, right? And they're going to have to prove that she was actually over the limit at the time, which based on the extrapolation results that we've seen, may be thrown out by the jury. The jury is the finder of fact here. They may just be like, listen, I like the guy. He was really nice. Both of those witnesses were really nice, but, how valid is that information that they were given? And it wasn't whole blood. It was serum. I mean, there's a lot of things. And the swing, and he almost was kind of laughing when he said, he's like, yeah, so it's like the results would have been like between 0.13 and 0.29, which is like either she was super drunk or almost dead. And everyone said that she did not seem drunk at the bar. So crazy. It's crazy to me. Yazdia, thank you. I wonder if 32 Fairview was the Asian house. Were those at 34 trying to get their neighbors in trouble? I don't know. That's interesting. I thought they were just trying to deflect that it was Brian Albert's house because everyone would know that he lives there, right? I mean, that was my thought, but I don't know. But that's interesting. That's right. I forgot about that whole group text message where Matt McCabe said, I'm driving by, the police is still there, but they're at the Asian house. Great luck. Debbie, thank you. If you are at a scene where a body is or was, and you say, I hit him to the police, you will be arrested. That Karen wasn't speaks volumes. Yes, Debbie, I agree with you. But that's why they treated it as a domestic initially. That's why it says, no crime. L. Parker, thank you so much for your time. What's your opinion on the time Jem McCabe took Karen on a goose chase before the scene? Yeah, that's interesting too. Like, why are they going, if you believe what Jen and Carrie testified to on the stand, Why are they going from Jen McCabe's house back to One Meadows to go around and look for him when Karen just came from there to leave a car there? Why wouldn't they just leave Karen's car at Jen McCabe's house and go from there? Why wouldn't Jen McCabe just call her sister and say, hey, did John show up after we left? Since that was the intended destination. And in fact, since Jen McCabe told the police that morning that she saw the passenger door open and saw their car outside, but she never saw them come in. So is she not smart enough to say, what, maybe I should call my sister and see if something happened, if he's there? So yeah, people have hypothesized that she was trying to burn time to formulate a plan. I don't know. But why did they need to go back to One Meadows? I don't think they needed to. They could have just left a car at Jen's house and taken Carrie's car over to Fairview, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know why they did that, but it didn't make sense to me. Nancy Joe, thank you for the 20. I'm sorry if this has already been addressed. I'm late. What is the reason for this court's insanity schedule? It feels off and even like it could create an unfair trial situation. What if jurors start dropping off? Well, they have 17 jurors, so they have 5 alternates. And I think some jurors had conflicts when they were selected and said, like, I need this day off for our graduation or whatever, because it's graduation season, right? And it's end of year season for parents and college graduations, high school graduations. I don't know. Is it like summer Fridays? I don't know. I don't know what this is, but I think these were planned days off. And at this rate, we're going to be here until Labor Day. But the good news is we have 5 alternate jurors. So there's that. Della, thank you so much. Here because of blackmail, dirty deeds done dirt cheap. Thanks, Della. Paige, thank you. Why was Karen Reed's car brought to the conflicted Canton PD? Right. People are saying there were several Sally Ports along the way from Dighton that are, in fact, run by MSP. Why didn't they bring the car there? Great question. Great question. Can't wait to hear about that on Cross, because we haven't heard from anybody yet from Massachusetts State Police. We've heard from none of those witnesses. And by the way, because I have the witness list in front of me of the Commonwealth, the first 10 witnesses listed on their witness list are all from Massachusetts State Police. Number 1 is Michael Proctor. 2 is Yuri Buchanan, who I believe is testifying tomorrow. So be here bright and early for that. Hopefully, if he's going to be the one, there's going to be some fireworks. Then we have also from all these are from Massachusetts State Police: Zachary Clark, Connor Keefe, David DeChico, Christopher Moore, Matthew Dunn, Brian Tully, and Nicholas Guarino, and Joseph Paul. Many of those names I remember or recall from taking some witness statements. Guarino is, I think, the one who did the cell phone extraction. Maybe he has something to do with Jen McCabe's Google search and Celebrate, if I recall correctly. We haven't heard from those 10. The other ones we have not yet heard from. Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, who's also from MSP. Then we have an officer from Dighton, Nicholas Barros. I think he's the officer who met Proctor and Buchanan at Karen Reed's parents' house to tow the vehicle. Then there's an officer from Dighton, Nicholas Barros. Maybe, oh, that's the one I just said. Okay. Then there's a sergeant from the Needham Police Department, Sergeant Brian Gallerani. I don't know who that is. Anybody know who that is? Trooper Evan Brent from MSP, Everton DeCastro from MSP, Justin Pye from MSP, and Captain Eric Benson from MSP. Oh, I wonder if he's related to Olivia Benson from SVU. Just a little Dick Wolf humor. Still not called yet is Ian Whiffen, who I believe is their Celebrate expert, maybe. And we have 2 nurses from Good Sam, Daisy Ormseth and Kathleen Wilfert. And then we have some witnesses from Bodie Technology. There's a Nicholas Bradford. There was another one from Bodie, and a test chart. And then we have another witness from the Massachusetts State Crime Lab, Sophie Herzen. And then there's Brian Lucky Lochran, the plow driver. That's going to be a great day, too. I can't wait for Lucky to come in because Lucky's not lying for anybody. He is the one who plowed Fairview on the night of the incident and saw a Ford Edge parked in front of the house. Didn't see a body at 2:30 a.m., but he did see a Ford Edge parked there right in front of where John O'Keefe's body was found. And he couldn't plow while it was parked there, so he didn't do his pass. During his first pass at 2:30, he said he absolutely did not see a body, and he has to look there because he knows that there's a fire hydrant there and he can't hit it with his plow. So that's going to be interesting. Then there's some other witnesses that I don't know who they are. There's a James Sullivan who maybe he's related to the Sullivan sisters. Jean DeMullis from Canton. Stephen Bernstein from Stoughton. Michael Trotta, we already heard from. He was the Department of Public Works. Bridget Meehan, who should be interesting. I think she's the owner of the waterfall. Does anybody know who that is? Bridget Meehan. Jessica Hyde, I think she's a forensic witness. 4 more witnesses from the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. And we also have the medical examiner. It's going to go on forever. The more I look at this, it's just going to go on forever. Yeah, Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello, who's the Office of Chief Medical Examiner who did the autopsy, and Dr. Renee Stonebridge, who I think is the Chief Medical Examiner. Right, buckle up because we're going to be here for a long time together, my friends. Leandra, thank you so much. My 85-year-old dad, retired lifetime law enforcement officer, is disgusted with the behavior of the law enforcement officers on display. He handmade an "I am outraged" window sign. Hello to your dad, Leandra. I hope he's watching. I don't curse because a lot of my viewers like to watch without headphones with their kids in the room and with their older parents in the room who do not like the cursey words. So we try and do that. So hi to your dad. Hello, Leandra's dad. Charlie Lynn, thank you so much. Says they could have called the niece. They did call the niece. And here's what the kids at One Meadows. Right. She was still there. Why didn't they call her and say, can you look around, make sure John's not there? You don't think that she did that? And here's what the kids testified to on the stand, by the way. Cameras were shut off on whatever the hell day that was that we last looked at testimony, and we didn't see their testimony, but the kids testified that Karen did not have access to the Ring camera footage. There's been a lot of speculation and accusations about Karen deleting Ring camera footage at One Meadows. The children testified that she did not have access to it. A Sparky, thank you. Who moved her car forward between the time Jen parked it and when the wellness check was? I don't know. Was her car moved? That's interesting. I don't know. I didn't notice that it was moved. I haven't heard that yet. A Sparky, maybe on some there. Della, I hit him could have been her hitting his SUV. Farce. Thank you, Della. Another thing I just thought of about the car, the wellness check. Why did they do a wellness check? Carrie and Jen both testified that they knew that the nephew was at a sleepover. And Michael Camerano testified that he went and got the niece. So why was there necessary to do a wellness check? That doesn't make sense to me either. Andrew Shires, thank you for the super chat. Maybe they took the car back to John's house because they expected Canton PD to arrest Karen. I mean, I don't know. They hadn't formulated any evidence of much of anything because this was before they even found his body, right? But I don't know. That's interesting, Andrew. I'll have to think about that a little bit more. I think my brain is kind of like mushy right now. Little bit like mush. But yeah, that's an interesting point. They said her parents called for the wellness check. No, her parents called to say that she was making suicidal threats. I don't think they said her parents called for the wellness check for the children. I'm talking about for the children. So I don't know. Hi, New Jersey Robin. Thank you for gifted membership. Love Melanie since Duty Ron Lives. Oh, thanks. I had Duty Ron on with me the other day. Love that guy. Wellness check. Oh, Lisa. Thanks, Lisa. I'll be on the raft in the pool listening, but I have to get out of the pool when Lally is up in here falling asleep on the raft. Yeah, don't drown. Don't drown and blame it on Lally. Nikki says those witnesses are gonna get wrecked on cross. Hello, Black Rose, another one of my amazing moderators. Thank you so very much for being here. Lisa, PJ, well, we're wrapping up. Sorry that you just got here, but we're wrapping it up. What time did I go on? 6:30. Okay, we've been here for 2 hours. Any pressing questions, concerns, thoughts, or ideas before we wrap? Boston, Mass. 781. If Karen Googled Haas long to die in cold, at 2:27 a.m., it would be game over. But because it was Jen McCabe, the data is lying. Yes, the data is lying. Of course it is. The Life 360 data is wrong too. But in one of Jen McCabe's other statements that she gave to Proctor, she whips out her phone and shows Proctor her Life 360 app and says, look, this is what time Karen came to my house. This is what time we got to One Meadows. This is what time. So, you can't use it as a shield and a sword. It's not how this thing called a murder trial works here. Thank you, One Step Beyond You. Please review the wellness check. I didn't see a date or time, and there isn't enough snow on the ground for the 29th. Didn't it say at the top of the footage? All right, I will go back and look at that. Thank you for some homework for me. One Step Beyond You. I thought there was a date stamp, and they did have an officer testify about what time it was. I thought it was sometime like around 8 o'clock that they did that, but I will take a look. And remember, they showed that video, and it was like a cliffhanger. It was like we were on the edge of our seat. He was pulling into the driveway of One Meadows, and they showed the house, and he said it was One Meadows. Then he pulls in the driveway right behind Karen's car, and we're all waiting, and her taillight's covered with snow, and we're like, oh, this is it. They're going to show that her taillight is shattered. And it was like a big nothing. It was like a big thud. We never saw it. We never saw anything. It was like the video of Karen and Jen McCabe in her pajama pants and Carrie Roberts pulling up to One Meadows, and Jen had just testified that as soon as they got to One Meadows, Karen pulled them both around to the back of her car and said, look at my shattered taillight. And they all took a look at it. And Carrie Roberts said, you were so drunk you could have hit anything. Let's go inside. And they go inside and they take off their shoes, but Karen doesn't take off her shoes. And therefore she's a murderer. And also, P.S. Turtle Boy. Not what the video showed. The video did not show that at all. We're waiting for it, and we never saw it. Went for the wellness check. Where's the shattered taillight? Where's the chunks missing? Where's the 45 pieces? Help. Ashley, thank you so much for the super chat. All they needed to do is move the decimal point on blood test. They won't ulterior your leave the hospital. They won't let you leave the hospital until sober. The reason they took the blood was to make sure she was not under the influence of drugs or alcohol for purposes of the Section 12. I don't know about moving the decimal point. That's not what he testified to, because they were testing for something other than blood alcohol level. It's just alcohol. I don't know, but I don't know. Will they not let you leave the hospital until sober? If it was under 0.8, is that considered sober? Or are they going to wait for it to go down to 0.000? I don't know. But thank you, Ashley. I'll look into that too. L. Parker, it says, make a cup. I'm sweet with questions. Thank you, Solomon Landscaping. Always a great informative listen. Well, thank you all for showing up and hanging out with me for 2 hours. This is thought we'd do a little regroup before tomorrow. Or tomorrow when we have to take deep namaste breaths starting at 8:30. Kirsten, did you just get here? Because I just rattled off a list of 37 witnesses. So you're going to have to rewind. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. Can't wait for the reconstructionist. Yes, we know from the pretrial motions that the FBI hired accident reconstructionists with 3 PhDs, 3 of them, all with PhDs, who did a reconstruction of this accident and said, dun, 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 John O'Keefe was not hit by a car and a car did not hit John O'Keefe. End of story, period, full stop. And they are going to be called by the defense, and they're not paid by the defense. These are reconstruction experts that were hired by the FBI. They're not hired guns by the defense. Thank you, Lisa, so very much for the Cash App donation. You are so very kind and generous, as are you all. As are you all, and I love you all. And thank you. Please hit the like button on your way out. It would really help, the algorithm and help get the stream pushed out. And also, if you would hit the subscribe button, it's totally free. And the bell so that you'll know when I go live. And that way you will not miss a thing. You will always be hanging out with us because we have a lot of fun here, as I think that you can tell if you're just joining us for the first time. Thank you so very much to my moderators. Thank you so much for keeping the chat classy tonight. I know that the Karen Reed content is not always easy to cover. So I do thank you so very much. And also to my channel members, thank you so much for loving me enough to want to be part of my community here that we've created the little cupcakes. And the reason for that is because I cannot make everyone happy. I'm not a cupcake. The sign that reminds me of that. I've been a mother of 5 for a very, very long time, and I just can't make everybody happy. But we are cupcakes here because we make each other happy. So yeah, I don't know, kind of stuck, and I like it. So there's that. And as I always say to end every stream, I'm so sorry about my Rangers, first of all, but I'll get over it. I'll see you tomorrow at 8:30. Hit the bell so you make sure that you are here with us. You don't want to miss a moment tomorrow if Yuri is going to be on the stand. And as I always say, be cool, be kind, be classy. It is not hard, really. I promise you, it is so not hard. You'll thank me later. Remember to breathe tonight and get a good night's sleep because we're going to be here all day tomorrow. Peace out, everyone. Love you. Good night.